The Galactic Navigation Academy always smelled faintly of ionized metal, as though every corridor still remembered the heat of ancient engines. Cadets from dozens of species filled its halls, but none dared to speak above a whisper as they gathered outside the simulation chamber. The final navigation exam was a ritual of fear. Every alien knew the ordeal: 7 days of relentless calculations, sleepless nights, and the ever-present threat of failure. Even the brightest required supercomputers to survive the task. Instructor Draxler stood at the center of the crowd, a towering figure whose 4 eyes blinked in slow, disapproving sync. His voice carried the weight of a man who had graded thousands of cadets and been disappointed by most. He barked orders, chastised nervous fidgeting, and reminded everyone present that even a fractional miscalculation could mean simulated death. The cadets listened with the reverence of condemned prisoners. Among them, Hruvax shifted uncomfortably, his broad shoulders trembling in visible dread. He was strong, methodical, and utterly terrified of the star cluster he would soon face. Beside him, Keter hugged his datapad like a shield, mumbling algorithmic sequences to steady his fraying nerves. For them, this exam wasn't just academic. Passing meant entry into the galactic fleet. Failing meant a lifetime of low-rank grunt work. Then the human walked in. Marcus Hale crossed the threshold with the casual stride of someone entering a quiet cafe rather than the most feared room in the academy. He wore a simple uniform, no enhancements, no neural link bands, no hollow gloves. His brown eyes wandered across the star charts projected along the walls, not with confusion, but with measured curiosity. The aliens nearest to him stiffened, unsure whether to be insulted by his ease or mesmerized by his audacity. Draxler's gaze snapped toward him. "Human candidate," he said, voice edged like glass. "You are late." Marcus glanced at the chronometer. "By 12 seconds, sir." "Which is 12 seconds you cannot afford to waste. The navigation exam is not designed for instinct-driven species." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Humans were rare in the academy, mostly seen as peculiar novelties, resourceful, stubborn, but hopelessly reliant on approximation and improvisation. In navigation, approximation was suicide. Marcus nodded respectfully. "Understood." He approached the display of the exam route, a dense star cluster writhing with gravitational distortions, solar flares, and tidal anomalies. It looked like a cosmic storm frozen in motion. Alien cadets backed away from the projection, unwilling to stare at the impossible for too long. Marcus stepped closer, his expression sharpening as if something inside the chaos made perfect sense. Hruvax leaned toward Keter. "He has no neural link," he whispered. "How is he going to process all that information?" Keter swallowed hard. "He can't. No one can. Humans don't. They're not built for this." Marcus placed a hand behind his back, observing the drifting stars with a stillness that unsettled the room. Draxler watched him carefully, irritation melting into faint curiosity. "Human," he said, "do you understand the nature of this exam? Aliens require a week to complete this route, even with supercomputers assisting them." Marcus nodded again. "I understand. Do you believe you can match that performance?" "No," Marcus paused. "I believe I can beat it." Hruvax nearly dropped his pad. Keter's eyes widened for they looked ready to pop from their sockets. Draxler's 4 eyes narrowed into slits. Arrogance was not uncommon at the academy, but this wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. Quiet, unshakable certainty. The kind that came only from someone who understood more than he should. "And what precisely," Draxler asked, "gives you the confidence to make such a claim?" Marcus finally stepped back from the star projection. "My people navigated worlds long before technology. Oceans, deserts, forests, polar whiteouts. We learned to read the sky. To trust the patterns. Every star tells a story if you're patient enough to listen." The explanation only deepened the aliens' confusion. Navigation without computational assistance wasn't bravery, it was insanity. Yet Marcus spoke of it as though it were natural, ingrained, almost hereditary. Draxler refused to show any reaction. "This exam does not require poetic reflection. It requires precision." Marcus offered a thin smile. Then I'll be precise. Whether it was confidence or madness, no one could decide. But when Marcus approached the simulation chamber doors, the cadets parted instinctively, as though giving space to something unpredictable, something dangerous. A mechanical hiss filled the room as the curved metal doors unlocked. The interior glowed with shifting blues and reds, mimicking the chaotic starlight of the cluster. Draxer gestured toward it, his voice low but firm. Once you enter, the exam begins immediately. You will not be granted assistance. There will be no pause, no restart, no computational backup. Do you accept these terms? I do. Marcus stepped through the threshold. Before the doors began closing behind him, Hruvax gathered the courage to speak. Human, he called out, voice trembling. Do you really think you can do this without a machine? Marcus turned, the fading light of the chamber reflecting in his calm eyes. Everyone else looks at the sky and sees chaos. Humans see a path. The doors sealed with a metallic thud that silenced the entire hall. The lights dimmed. The monitoring screens flickered to life. The simulation activated. And for the first time in the Academy's long history, every cadet leaned forward, not to witness another failure, but to witness what no one believed possible. The moment the simulation activated, Marcus found himself adrift in a cosmos that felt more alive than any sky he had ever studied. Stars churned around him with restless energy, each one tugged by gravitational tides that rippled like invisible storms. The chamber's curved walls dissolved into a seamless panorama, leaving him suspended inside an ocean of burning lights and drifting shadows. The test was notorious for overwhelming even the most disciplined minds, yet Marcus inhaled slowly, tasting the metallic hint of the simulation's recycled air as if preparing for something familiar. Outside the chamber, Instructor Draxer monitored a bank of holographic readouts. His 4 eyes tracked Marcus's vitals, neural activity, and trajectory. It took only seconds for confusion to ripple across his cold, disciplined expression. Marcus was neither panicking nor fumbling for controls. He hadn't activated any automated systems. Instead, his readings resembled the calm focus of someone solving a simple arithmetic problem. Inside, Marcus tilted his head, watching as the first pulsar began its cycle. Its rhythmic flashes painted the chamber in alternating stripes of violet and empty black. He didn't bother running the projected vectors. His eyes narrowed as he traced the subtle wobble in its rotational pattern. That wobble wasn't random. It foreshadowed a gravitational pulse that would surge in precisely 3 seconds. He angled his simulated vessel 30 degrees before the hazard even formed. The pulse detonated on cue, a wave of distorted space-time sweeping past him. The ship glided effortlessly through the turbulence. He remembered being 12 years old in the desert with his father, the sky unbroken by clouds. They had camped far from any city noise, where the heavens revealed themselves without restraint. His father taught him how the stars shifted during the night, how to predict weather by the faint reddening of certain constellations, how a traveler could survive entire journeys guided only by memory and instinct. That night had felt like the universe whispering its secrets. This simulation, with all its cosmic violence, whispered in the same voice. Hruvax pressed closer to the observation glass, hands trembling. He's not activating the predictive algorithms, he muttered. Why isn't he running the standard calculations? Keter squinted at the monitors. Because he doesn't need them, he whispered, as if afraid to say the truth aloud. Draxer ignored their chatter, uncharacteristically shaken. His eyes jumped between the anomaly tracker and Marcus's course. The human was navigating as though he already knew what the cluster would do. Every alien cadet required a week to build a path through this region, feeding endless variables into computational cores. Marcus Hale was building his trajectory in real time, effortlessly. Back in the simulation, a trio of rogue stars drifted into alignment, their combined gravity predictably catastrophic. Marcus didn't flinch. He studied the asynchronous pulses of their magnetic fields, then turned his vessel into the corridor of weakest distortion. His decision came so quickly it bordered on instinct rather than calculation. This is impossible, Draxer murmured. No biological reflexes operate at this speed. No mind processes celestial shifts with this accuracy. Yet the evidence unfolded before him. Marcus adjusted again, subtle, fluid, almost graceful. His entire body moved with the faintest motions, as though reading a map printed on the air itself. Each decision held the confidence of someone who recognized a pattern invisible to others. Marcus whispered to himself as he moved, not numbers, but observations. Star 3 drifting, flare cycle stable, gravitational bow forming, path curving 5 degrees westward. It wasn't technical jargon. It was the language of someone navigating by sight. The simulation intensified. Solar eruptions spiraled like serpents of plasma. Dark matter pockets flickered like invisible mines. An unstable neutron star rotated with a strobe-like fervor that could shred a misaligned vessel. Marcus anticipated each threat with unnerving ease. He moved before danger fully formed, reacting not to what he saw, but to what he knew would happen next. Hruvax shook uncontrollably. How can he possibly keep track of everything at once? Keter answered without looking away from the screen. He's not. He's feeling it. Draxur's gaze sharpened. Explain. Humans evolved under a sky that changed constantly. Seasons, star positions, shadows, night cycles, they learned to predict motion without thinking. Their brains don't calculate like ours. They recognize patterns the way predators track movement. Draxur glanced at Marcus's vitals. Heart rate steady, breath deep, cortisol minimal. A mind perfectly aligned with its environment. In the simulation, Marcus approached the most volatile region of the cluster. Here, gravitational eddies overlapped like tangled currents in a stormy sea. The slightest misalignment would sling his vessel into oblivion. This was the part that broke nearly every cadet who attempted it. Marcus smiled faintly. He recognized the pattern, 3 interacting gravity wells forming something akin to oceanic tide cycles. He treated them like heaving waves, timing his movement the way a sailor might steer through a tempest. He adjusted his vessel's pitch, letting the simulated currents lift and pull him, guiding him toward the only viable exit. The ship emerged from the turbulence untouched. The observation chamber went silent. Draxur's voice came tight, nearly a whisper. He has already reached the final quadrant. Keter checked the timestamp and staggered backward. He's been in there less than 5 minutes. Inside, Marcus slowed the vessel, using the last cluster of stars as reference points. Their gentle drift spoke to him like familiar constellations, as though the simulation itself acknowledged his passage. When the final navigation marker illuminated, he exhaled with quiet satisfaction. The simulation flickered. The cosmos disintegrated into faint holographic dust. The chamber lights returned in a soft gradient of white. Marcus raised his head as the doors unlocked with a resonant click. Draxur stood rigidly as Marcus stepped out, his boots echoing across the floor. The instructor opened his mouth, but no reprimand or praise came out, only stunned silence. On the near screen, the route Marcus had drawn in 5 minutes glowed like a meticulously carved river through chaos. Not a single detour. Not a single miscalculation. A perfect path. Hruvax swallowed. Is that even allowed? Marcus looked at the astonished aliens around him, his expression calm but not arrogant, just honest. You asked how humans navigate, he said softly. We don't see the universe as numbers. We see it as motion. Once you understand the rhythm, the path becomes obvious. No one answered. Every cadet stared at him as though witnessing the first spark of a myth. Draxur finally found his voice. Human candidate, report to the main hall. The exam board must review this. Marcus nodded and walked past them, the room parting around him like a tide. Behind him, Draxur whispered something almost reverent. The words meant only for himself. What are humans? The main hall of the Galactic Navigation Academy was a cathedral of polished alloy and austere silence. Tall pillars shaped like elongated star lances lined the chamber, flickering faintly with embedded star maps from centuries-old expeditions. Normally, cadets would march through this hall with disciplined precision, their footsteps blending into a uniform cadence. But today there was no order, no calm, only disbelief rippling from one alien to another as Marcus Hale walked toward the central dais. The exam board waited above him on a raised platform, each member a senior navigator from a different species. Their robes shimmered with holographic constellations, symbols of authority that few dared challenge. At the center stood Senior Examiner Vorel, a thin, sharp-faced figure whose 3 metallic horns gleamed under the hall lights. He was known for his unflinching adherence to tradition, and his intolerance for deviation was legendary. Marcus halted at the base of the platform. Draxer stood beside him, posture stiff, as if unsure whether to appear proud or horrified. The room filled with murmurs, cadets, instructors, and technicians all whispering about the impossible test result now circulating through the Academy's systems. Vorel raised a hand, and the murmurs vanished instantly. "Human candidate," he said, voice cold as vacuum. "Your performance has raised questions." Marcus met his gaze evenly. "I assumed it might." Vorel's eyes narrowed at the lack of deference. "You completed a 7-day navigation sequence in 5 minutes. With no computational support, without a neural link, and with a precision that surpasses verified fleet standards." His tone scraped against the air. "Explain." Marcus inhaled, slow but steady. "I didn't calculate it. I recognized the pattern. The cluster behaved like interacting tide cycles. I followed the motion." The board shifted uncomfortably. Draxer's lower eyes twitched. Hruvax and Keter watched from the crowd, their expressions suspended between awe and confusion. Vorel clasped his hands behind his back. "The simulation is not designed to be recognized. It is designed to be computed. You claim what every sentient species has found impossible for generations." "I only claim what happened," Marcus replied. A low murmur rose again, filled with tension rather than curiosity. Marcus's calmness made the board uneasy. His explanation made them suspicious. His result made them afraid. Vorel gestured toward a floating holo-display. Marcus's navigation path materialized, smooth, elegant, impossibly efficient. "This," Vorel said slowly, "is not the work of instinct. It is the work of illicit assistance." His voice sharpened. "You cheated." Draxer stiffened. "There is no evidence of unauthorized equipment." He passed every security scan. Vorel didn't acknowledge him. "No species, none, has ever produced a biological mind capable of such feat. The conclusion is obvious." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You want the conclusion to be obvious. That doesn't make it true." A ripple went through the hall. Some cadets flinched. Others stared at Marcus as if he had just struck a superior officer. Vorel leaned forward. "Then you will allow us to verify the truth. You will retake the exam under stricter parameters. A more complex route. A less predictable simulation." His gaze sharpened like a blade. "If your abilities are genuine, you will prove it again." Marcus held his stare. "When?" "Tomorrow." Hruvax nearly shouted, his voice cracking. "Tomorrow? That's impossible." Vorel silenced him with a glare. "Only the candidate may answer the challenge." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'll be ready." Shock rippled once more through the room. Even Draxer looked at him as though seeing a new, unfamiliar version of the same man. Vorel's lips curled into the smallest, coldest smile. "Confidence is admirable, human. But arrogance is fatal. The next simulation is not a test. It is a crucible. It was designed to expose frauds and destroy egos." "I'm not afraid," Marcus said. "You should be." Draxer stepped forward. "Senior Examiner, the purpose of this academy is to cultivate ability, not punish it. If the human has a skill we do not understand, we ought to study it." Vorel bristled. "And you believe this anomaly deserves special consideration?" You watched his route. No mind is that precise. Marcus spoke before Draxer could respond. "Maybe you don't need precision. Maybe you need perception." Vorel stared at him with thinly veiled disdain. "Your species has always been reckless with such claims. But tomorrow, we will see the truth." The exam board began to disperse, But the hall did not recover its usual order. Cadets clustered into uneasy groups. Some looked at Marcus with admiration, others with suspicion, and a few with quiet fear, as though he had unmasked a flaw in their entire understanding of the universe. Draxer turned toward him. "Human." "Marcus," he said, his voice rougher than before, "I do not know what you are, but your skill is not a trivial anomaly." He paused, searching Marcus's eyes. "Do you understand what this means for the Academy? For the fleet? For every species that believes navigation is their exclusive intellect?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "It means the galaxy has been looking at the stars the wrong way." Draxer exhaled through his mandibles, a gesture of weary acceptance. "Prepare yourself. Tomorrow's test will not be kind." "I don't want it to be kind," Marcus replied. The statement unsettled Draxer more than anything Marcus had done so far. As the hall slowly emptied, Keter approached Marcus timidly. "Human, are you certain you can take on a harder version of the exam?" Marcus looked past him toward the distant star map projections glowing along the walls. "I didn't come here to match what everyone else can do," he said softly. "I came here to understand the universe in a way no one else has tried." Keter hesitated, then nodded, stepping back as if giving space to a force of nature. The lights dimmed across the great hall. Marcus stood in the center, alone yet unshaken, a solitary figure surrounded by doubts, questions, and the weight of an entire academy's expectations. Tomorrow's challenge loomed like a storm on the horizon, vast, unpredictable, and unforgiving. But Marcus didn't fear storms. He had always trusted the sky to show him the way. The next morning, the Galactic Navigation Academy hummed with tension. Word of Marcus Hale's unprecedented achievement had spread through every corridor, every classroom, every cadet's mind. Even the oldest instructors whispered about the human who had defied logic and computation. The atmosphere was taut, like a string stretched to its breaking point. Today, the final crucible awaited, a simulation designed not to teach, but to expose, to crush the weak and exalt only the flawless. Marcus stood before the chamber doors, calm and deliberate. He studied the metallic surface, polished smooth but etched faintly with centuries of scorched marks from failed tests. Behind him, Draxer's four eyes watched with unreadable emotion, a mixture of apprehension and reluctant respect. Hruvax and Keter lingered at the edge of the observation platform, each silently praying, or perhaps fearing, that the human would survive what even the most skilled alien minds had never managed. Vorel emerged from the shadows, his three horns glinting under the overhead lights. "Human," he intoned, "today you will navigate the quintuple cluster. It contains rogue stars, 3 unstable black holes, and gravitational anomalies deliberately designed to make the route unpredictable. No simulation has ever been completed without computational assistance. No biological being has survived intact. Are you prepared?" Marcus nodded, his expression serene. "I've been ready since I first looked at the stars." The doors hissed open, revealing a swirling panorama of chaotic light. The quintuple cluster stretched before him, a twisting labyrinth of brilliance and void. Stars collided, flares arced unpredictably, and gravity wells formed shifting corridors of danger. The entire simulation pulsed like a living organism, threatening to swallow him with every movement. Marcus inhaled, letting the immensity of it settle over him. He didn't activate any instruments. No holomaps, no computational overlays, no AI guidance. He trusted his instincts, honed over a lifetime of tracking motion, memorizing patterns, and reading the subtle drift of celestial bodies. His eyes traced the chaos, each flash of light, each pulse, each gravitational tug conveying information his mind translated instantly into a path forward. The first black hole loomed ahead, a pit of crushing space and energy. Marcus predicted its tidal oscillations and nudged his vessel into the corridor of least resistance. Outside, Draxer leaned forward, brows drawn together, studying the readouts that showed impossible precision, impossible timing. "He's predicting it," the instructor muttered, voice low. "He sees the movement before it exists." Rogue stars collided near the central vortex. Marcus's ship twisted, banking fluidly, weaving through spiraling plasma. He spoke under his breath, narrating the path in fragments of instinctual language. Left drift, flare neutral, trajectory holds, every word mirrored the precision of his mind. No computation, only comprehension. Hruvax's jaw hung slack, and Keter pressed a claw to his chest. How is he even alive? Keter whispered. Voral's voice cut across the observation deck. Stop analyzing. Observe. This is beyond understanding. The cluster's turbulence increased. Gravity wells merged, forming shifting tunnels that would tear an unprepared ship apart. Marcus paused only long enough to feel their rhythm, to sense the slight asymmetry in their orbit. He didn't calculate, he anticipated. His ship moved as if guided by the subtle whisper of the stars themselves. Minutes stretched, though Marcus did not perceive them as such. Time was irrelevant. He trusted motion, instinct, and memory. He threaded the vessel through the deadliest of gravitational currents, avoided plasma flares by anticipating their arcs, and emerged from the chaotic center unscathed. The final navigation markers glowed faintly in his sight, a path through the last sector of the cluster. Outside, Draxur's lower eyes widened, his tentacles twitching involuntarily. Even the senior examiner, Voral, stiffened. He had never seen an organic mind navigate this complexity without failure. The monitors confirmed what he dreaded. Marcus had passed. Not just passed, but executed the most efficient route ever recorded. Energy consumption minimized, time optimized, collision risk zero. Marcus guided his vessel into the final coordinate, and the simulation dissolved into a soft gradient of light. The chamber's doors slid open with a resonant hiss. He stepped out, calm, collected, unshaken. Silence followed him. Cadets and instructors alike stared, a mix of awe, disbelief, and respect etched into every face. Draxur's mandibles clicked softly, a gesture of approval. "You've done it," he murmured. Voral approached slowly, face unreadable, hands clasped behind him. "Human? Marcus Hale," he said, voice tight with grudging acknowledgement. "I have witnessed what I once thought impossible. You navigated what no species, no mind, no algorithm has ever managed." He paused, studying Marcus closely. "Your method, it defies every principle we teach, every law we uphold. And yet it works." Marcus met his gaze steadily. "The stars are not a puzzle to solve with machines," he said. "They are a language. Once you learn to read it, the path becomes clear." A murmur of understanding rippled through the hall. Hruvax and Keter exchanged stunned glances, recognizing that they had just witnessed something far beyond talent or training. Marcus's human intuition had achieved what generations of alien computation could not. Voral inclined his head slightly, a gesture of reluctant respect. "Then perhaps it is time we re-examine what we teach. Perhaps instinct, perception, and intuition deserve a place alongside calculation." Draxur's voice rumbled softly. "He's offered us more than a path through a simulation. He's shown us a perspective we have ignored for centuries." Marcus looked at the assembled cadets, some of whom were trembling, others inspired. "You all rely on machines because they are efficient," he said. "But the universe does not operate on efficiency alone. It operates on motion, on rhythm, on understanding the relationships between things. Look at the stars. Trust what they tell you." The hall was silent again, this time not with disbelief, but with the quiet reverence that accompanies witnessing greatness. Marcus turned and walked toward the exit, his stride calm, measured, carrying the confidence of someone who had always trusted the sky to show him the way. Behind him, Draxur finally straightened, eyes gleaming. "Human," he said softly, "perhaps your people are more than we imagined." And somewhere deep in the observation deck, Voral whispered, almost to himself, "The first instinctive navigators in galactic history." Marcus disappeared into the corridor, leaving a trail of stunned silence and new understanding in his wake. The Academy would never be the same. The sky, and those who dared to read it, had proven stronger than any algorithm.